Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, I would like to kick off chapter 4. It is on shaping behavior. And trust me, this is a game changer, whether you are working a job, leading a team, or just even managing your own goals. But first, I really want you to think about the last time someone gave you a compliment that really boosted your mood, your confidence, or maybe even when you avoided doing something because you wouldn't get your favorite sticker until it was done, right? Those moments are examples of behavior being shaped, whether that is being shaped by others or even by yourself. And so in this, shaping behavior kind of section, this chapter, we're asking four big questions. The first one is, how do organizations actually deliver the right rewards at the right time? The second one will be focused a little bit on managers. So how do managers actually train and reinforce the behaviors that they want to see? The third question that we will answer is, how do they reduce undesirable behaviors while encouraging the good ones? Because that's tough. That's a really hard balance for a lot of people in leadership. And then finally, how can you take the reins and shape your own habits and your own performance? Now, this isn't abstract theory, right? It's practical stuff. We're diving into how companies like Google create feedback systems to encourage learning, how supervisors use recognition to reinforce good performance, and how you can coach your own future behavior for success. So, with that being said, let's jump in. Let's talk first about basic models of learning. Now, basic models of learning, this is how we actually learn behaviors at work, because spoiler alert, we don't just magically know how to behave in a new job or even in a class. It's learned. And today we're looking at three big models of learning. The first one is called classical conditioning. And I'm sure you've heard of these terms at some point. And you've probably heard of Pavlov's dogs, right? You ring a bell, you feed the dog, and eventually the dog just salivates at the sound of the bell. And in a workplace, that might look like associating maybe an instant message that comes in, like a Teams message ping, the sound with stress, because it usually means that maybe your manager's asking for something urgent, right? Even if it's not urgent, you react. That is an example. That's what conditioning is. Then we move into operant conditioning. This is a model by Skinner. And is probably the most common at work. If you show up on time and your boss compliments you or gives you more responsibility, you are more likely to repeat that behavior. And the opposite is also true. So if you mess up a project, you get called out in front of others, that behavior probably stops because that feeling that came with being called out didn't feel so good. Okay. Now, in one of my first jobs, when I was just out of college, I worked for a really large retailer and I was in one of my first manager roles. And my team, they were set with opening credit card goals. Every week they had a weekly goal. And for those that would hit those goals, I would get them a Starbucks on me, right? And what that did, that small, consistent reward, it trained the employees to stay focused and to deliver results. The third model is social learning theory, and this is Bandura's model. And it is basically us learning by watching other people. If you've ever started a new job and just kind of watched your coworkers to figure out how to act, maybe what to wear, when to speak up, how to email a customer or client, that is you engaging in social learning. Now, think about how you're learning now, right? Whether it's in school, whether it's in the workplace, who are you modeling? What's reinforcing your habits? Start noticing these patterns, because awareness is step one to improving behavior. And that's true of yourself, and that's also true of others. Now, we've covered how we learn, but now let's talk about how we actually change behavior. This is where reinforcement comes in. And there are four types of reinforcement, and you have likely heard of these terms at some level in your life. But the first one is positive reinforcement. If you do something good, you get something good. If you answer a tough question in class and your professor says, "Hey, that's really great insight. Thanks for sharing," you feel good. It makes you feel like you're in a safe space. You're more likely to speak up again. That is positive reinforcement. The second type is negative reinforcement. And it sounds bad, but it's actually not. This is when you remove something annoying when behavior improves. So, for example, if you do well on a group project, your manager might tell you, hey, you don't have to submit these check-in reports anymore. The removal of that extra task actually reinforces your good work. That's motivating. And then you're likely to repeat that again. Okay. Because you know maybe the undesirable, the under the undesirable like feeling of having to take on this annoying task. So we don't want that task anymore. We're gonna continue to submit things on time. The third thing is extinction. This is when you actually stop responding to a behavior and you hope it goes away. It is like a coworker that always tries to get laughs with these off-topic jokes in meetings. You hope that eventually, if nobody laughs, that person will stop. And then the fourth one is punishment. So you decrease the behavior by adding or taking something away. So if someone keeps showing up late to a shift, they might have their hours reduced. Punishment is effective short term, but it's also risky if it's overused. So I just give that with a word of caution. And the reason why is because it can lower morale and really impact a company's culture very negatively fairly quickly. So, looking at you in your kind of college life right now, just think about if you've had a professor that's publicly praised you on a well-written paper, right? That's positive reinforcement. It might motivate the rest of the class to maybe even step it up. Or maybe you have a roommate stop nagging you about dishes once you start doing them every day. That's negative reinforcement, right? So reinforcement works best when it's immediate, when it's consistent, and when it's tied to a clear behavior. So whether you're leading a team, training yourself, reward what you want to see more of. We're going to take it a step further. So we talked about how we learn, we talked about how we kind of shape behavior. Now, what if you're a manager and you want to systematically shape how your team behaves? This is where behavior modification comes in. And it's not about manipulating people, right? It's about being intentional with reinforcement to build a positive work environment. And there's a process to this. It's like 5 steps. The first is you define the behavior that you want to see. Then you audit the performance. So you ask what's happening now. The third thing is you want to set goals. The fourth, we always want to track progress. And then fifth, we reinforce the improvement so that we continue to see desirable behaviors. So an example could be, let's say you work for a company and there is a team, or maybe you're on that team and the team is consistently late with project reports. A new manager may come in, they may set very clear expectations and create a system where maybe early submissions are recognized in front of leadership. And then you might see within weeks that deadlines are being met more consistently. And the reason why is because behavior was reinforced with recognition, right? So expectations were set, the goals were set, progress was tracked, and improvement was reinforced. Sorry, improvement was reinforced. When I was consulting in my earlier HR career for some small to mid-sized businesses, I once coached a manager who wanted more collaboration in team meetings. Now, historically, this manager, she was not really well liked. I think that, there were some situations that people have had with her where her communication style wasn't that great and people had just been put off with her. And so she was really trying to turn over a new leaf and had asked me to coach her on how she can get more collaboration in team meetings. And so one really easy thing that we did that made such a huge impact is she started calling out great team contributions weekly. And that caught on. And then she started taking it from, doing this recognition in front of the whole team to going a little bit further and including her leader and then their leader. And it caught on and people wanted to be mentioned. That is an example of behavior modification in action. So if you're ever in a leadership role, It could even be a group project. You can apply this. So don't just hope that people perform well. Set a structure that makes the right behavior easier and more rewarding. And it does work. Okay. Now let's talk about flipping the focus inward a little bit. How do you take control of your own behavior when no one's watching? That's where behavioral self-management, or BSM, comes in. So this is all about self-regulation, and it includes 3 steps. The first is self-monitoring. You have to pay attention to your behavior. In my last video, I talked a little bit about awareness being very, very important. And that's usually the first step in, improving and shaping cultures and really having excellent performance. So pay attention to your behavior. Maybe you realize you're scrolling social media every time you get stuck on a paper. Notice that. Pay attention to that. Try and uncover why you're doing that. Maybe there's a part of this task that is draining for you. Let's work through that. So self-monitoring is the first part of self-regulation. The second thing is self-evaluation. Compare that behavior, or maybe you scrolling social media when you should be doing other things, to your goal. Are you meeting those deadlines? Are you putting in your best work? The third is self-reinforcement. Reward yourself when you meet your goal. If you hit a steady milestone, treat yourself to a walk or a show or going out to dinner, don't wait for someone to motivate you. You can train yourself, you can set goals, track your behavior, you can reinforce your wins, even the small ones. It builds confidence and it builds momentum. So, as I wrap up, I just want to take a moment to connect the dots a little bit. We've explored how people learn behaviors, right, through classical, operant, and social learning, and how, those patterns show up in the workplace every day. We talked about reinforcement and how the right feedback at the right time can shape habits that lead to better performance, really stronger relationships, and a healthier work culture. And then we talked about behavior modification, right? So how leaders can use structure and very intentional reinforcement to guide team behavior. And then we ended by bringing it back to you, because you're not just preparing to lead others, you are learning to lead yourself. And behavioral self-management really gives you the tools to make changes, to stay consistent, and reward yourself in meaningful ways. And honestly, that is what organizational behavior is all about. It's not just about companies or theories. It's about understanding how people function at work and how we can create environments where everyone has the chance to grow and thrive and contribute. So here's my challenge to you as I wrap up. I want you to think about one behavior, just one that you want to improve. Maybe it's starting assignments earlier. Maybe it's speaking up more. Maybe it's finding better balance. And then apply what we learned right here today. Observe it, set a goal, reinforce that progress. And I challenge you to watch how much control you actually have over your own growth. You're already doing the work by just showing up and learning. So keep going. And thank you so much. Talk to you for chapter 5.